What is up, everyone? Guys, listen up. So in today's video, we are going to be re-ranking every primary weapon against the terminids. We got a bunch of new enemies now. We got new bugs in the game and so on. So a lot of the meta has shifted in many ways. So we are gonna break down all of those things. When I'm rating these weapons, what I keep in mind is how easy these weapons will make the hardest difficulty within the game to complete, right? So if there's a weapon that I think is the most effective one when it comes to clearing the highest difficulty as efficiently and as easily as possible, that's gonna be rated the highest. There's no like personal feelings here. I'm not attached to these guns. I've tested every single one of these weapons on the highest difficulty. So let's break it down. And remember, we can agree to disagree. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The new bugs are kind of crazy. The speed, how athletic they are, and the way they move really changed up the game. First weapon I want to talk about is going to be the torture. The torture is one of those weapons that is really not easy to use, especially in this current meta right here. However, that said, I feel like it's one of those weapons that if you do master, it can be very strong. So what does torture do very well? Well, first of all, the fact that it can kill any enemy on the bug side is very impressive. You can literally take down Bile Titans with this one. Now, a lot of the times the argument will be, yeah, but you have to risk it and it's too dangerous. Yes, it is. But that's where the experience comes in, so that you push in at the right openings when you're trying to kill the Bile Titan, and you're not going to push the Bile Titan when there's 57 warriors and 42 hunters running right around his legs, right? So there's definitely a skill gap there. However, the skill gap doesn't make this weapon bad in any case, but it also doesn't make it overpowered. It just means that if you master it, it will reward you with time. Now, in the meta that we are in right now, I feel like just because of the speed that the enemies have and how fast they can close the gap, for me personally, the torture is not gonna be in big PP tier, even though it's one of my literally favorite weapons within the game. Right now, I think that there's a different meta in the game, and we are going to discuss that here in a second, but we are going to drop this into A tier. Another thing to keep in mind is that we are going to have some weapons that are going to be on the higher A tier, and some of them are going to be on the lower A tier as well. This is where it's going to start off. Let's see if we move it around as I go down the list here. Next one is the Liberator. Now, I'll be honest here. I don't want to waste a lot of your time. We're just going to go over the auto rifles in general in one go, because after testing these, especially against the new enemies and bugs and Gloom and all, you know, all the craziness, this is not an option, man. Like, you can use it if you enjoy to, but they have a serious ammo economy issue. And with this setup and with this meta right now against the bugs, reloading costs you your life a lot of the times, and running out of ammo costs you your life a lot of the times. And whenever weapon customization is added to the game, yeah, then maybe it's good. I don't know. Currently, there's no reason to use this. We could probably throw this even in doo-doo tier. And listen, they already added a drum mag to the Liberator concussive. It's still not as good as many other weapons in the game. So I don't think that increasing ammo economy will hurt auto rifles. It will just take away the annoyance of reloading all the time. And to be honest, there's still light pen. Most of the ARs are. And meanwhile, you have Sickle, which essentially is the best auto rifle in the game. But anyway, we're going to talk about Sickle when we get there. That was a long of a rant. Let's just throw this into C tier, especially in the new meta against the bugs. Absolutely zero reason to use auto rifles. I'm going to quickly go over the other ones as well. We're just going to throw them all in here. Where's the, I don't want to miss any of them. This one goes, all of these honestly can be in doo-doo tier as well. I don't want to miss any. Tenderizer is probably the best one out of these weapons, but yeah, that's about it. And we're gonna keep him in C tier for now. We might move it down to doo-doo tier in a little bit. If you're trying to, as I said at the beginning of the video, efficiently and easily clear the highest difficulty, there is zero reason for you guys to pick up any of these weapons. Next up on the list is the Blitzer, one of the first weapons that is gonna go to big PP tier. And just a bit ago, I mentioned that there is a new meta that formed because of the changes on the bug side, and the new meta right now is crowd control. As long as you have crowd control in your arsenal, your life becomes 10 times easier, and you're going to be completing the highest difficulty missions much easier as well. So Blitzer has all of it. It has damage, infinite ammo, it has incredible CC. Across the board, one of the best picks within the game in this current meta. It was already great, man. Don't get me wrong. If you were playing against the bugs, Blitzer was already big PP. It really was for a while now. But currently, it's like more like humongous PP. You know what I mean? That this thing is insane right now. So we are going to drop it in here. No matter what build you're running, you can use this to benefit your build and make it much stronger. So easy pick. Now, when it comes to the concussive, I know that some people are going to be like, but Pip, you just said that, you know, crowd control is incredible. The thing about the concussive is that compared to the other weapons, such as, for example, the Blitzer and some other ones that we're going to go over as we move into the tier list, the other ones deal damage and stun and stagger on a way higher rate than this weapon. And also, you got to keep in mind that the kind of CC that it does is nowhere as good as some of the other weapons that we are going to break down. It's just not on the same level, honestly. So meanwhile, you have a Blitzer that can hit a bunch of targets at the same time, stun them, stagger them, or kill them right away. It's one of those exceptions when it comes to CC that really has no worth currently, in my opinion, compared to the other options. Then we have the Dominator. Now, the Dominator has a little clunkiness to it. That said, after playing with this weapon, especially against the stalkers and whatnot, this thing does work. The problem becomes, once again, the clunkiness. So if you really want to build into it, you got to go peak physique, it feels like. However, at that point, you're sacrificing really good armor pieces such as the medical armor for peak physique. However, if you do that, this can be very strong. Don't get me wrong. It can destroy the stalkers. It is still very good. It also destroys the tails of chargers pretty easily as well. So we are going to drop it in A tier at the moment. We might move it lower in a bit if we see that we have better options, but currently it's going to sit right under torture. Then we have the one and only Cookout. This is going to go to big PP tier right away against the bugs for a few reasons, right? Obviously, the fire being one of them. Ammo economy is great. And even though I personally do not enjoy Cookout, and I would probably almost never pick it up, this is where I want to bring this as an example for you guys, that just because you personally don't like something, you can't ignore the facts, okay? Facts are still facts. And the fact is, Cookout is an incredible weapon across the board. It deals with everything, and especially with the new hunters that are just speeding around like Usain Bolt. You just tag them once or twice, they burn down. It's very easy. It's a very comfortable weapon as well, and it takes out shriekers with ease. So that's another plus. It's going to be in big PP. I don't think it's better than the Blitzer. I don't think many weapons are better than the Blitzer actually in the current meta, but it really does deserve to be here. Oh, and I forgot to throw this adjudicator in here. Probably here. Once again, the gun itself, actually, both this and the tenderizer feel good, but the ammo economy is not good enough. And if the argument is, Pip, what are you talking about? Just pick up the supply pack. Well, guys, if I'm picking up the supply pack, then I'll just use the Scorcher. I'm not going to use any of these guns, because guess what? Scorcher does everything that these guns do, but better. And on top of that, you know what it does? It can absolutely annihilate a Baltide. It can absolutely annihilate a Charger. It can absolutely destroy an Impaler. It literally does everything that these weapons do, but 10 times better. So the argument of supply pack just isn't viable, because supply pack makes anything better. It's about how the weapons feel in general and how they amplify with the supply pack. Then we have the Crossbow. Now, you guys know that usually I think that the Crossbow is always big PP tier when it comes to the bugs. However, I do think that the Crossbow with Torture has dropped to A tier with the new meta. Now, this is just obviously my personal thoughts, but I would like to explain this. The reason for that is because of the speed of the enemies and how fast they cover that distance. It is very hard to keep them away at a safe distance so that you do not damage yourself with the Crossbow. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still make it work. I'm just saying that it's harder to make it work than it was. As you guys can see, the two options that we have in big PP tier are very efficient, are very strong, but they're also very safe to use. And Blitzer has incredible CC, stagger, stun, whatever it is, it's perfect, okay? These weapons, even though they are really, really good, for example, both Torture and the Crossbow, some of my favorite weapons within the game, specifically the Torture, there is a high risk of damaging yourself. And in this current meta, damaging yourself when you have hunters that go invis, jump at you, melee, and spew you at the same time, the last thing you want to be doing is dealing extra damage to yourself, okay? So it is very dangerous to use, and there's a high skill gap there. If you master these weapons, they're still incredible. They're still high A tier. This doesn't mean they're bad. This means they're actually still very, very good. But I do think that the Blitzer and Cookout are simply better in this overall meta that we have currently. Now let's talk about the new double-edged sickle. So there's a few things to discuss here. This is a weapon that has divided the community into two, right? If you are a player that likes building into weapons, for example, if you played something like Destiny 2 or any other games that have like ARPG elements to it, and for example, you need a good armor piece to make this sword better, or you need these boots that have these specific perks on it that affect how your primary weapon works. If you like that kind of build crafting, then this weapon is great, because you can put on a few things in order to make this weapon pretty good, which would be heavy fire armor or medium heavy armor, vitality booster, and essentially you're good to go. In that case, this weapon can be pretty nice because it even has AP4 after 91% hit rate, and you can take down Bile Titans, Hulks, and so on. But right now we're talking about the bugs, so we have to ignore how it performs on the bot side, which, by the way, it is very good on the bot side if you build into it. But when it comes to the bugs, as I said, it kind of runs into the same issue as the Torture, but even more so. The Torture doesn't necessarily punish you for just shooting it, no matter what level you are on the magazine. However, this one does. And currently, because how much damage the bugs can deal and how fast they are and how quick they can get to you, this weapon is just not viable on the bug side. You can once again fully build into it, but even then the stagger is not there, and not having that stagger is, and on top of that, dealing tons of damage to yourself just feels like a waste of your material, such as, for example, the stims. So we are not going to be dropping this into A tier or even B tier. We're probably going to throw this into C tier. You can move this around. It doesn't really matter if you put it here or here. For me personally, I would not pick it up against the bugs. Once again, if the goal is to complete the highest difficulty of the game as fast and as easy as possible. And keep in mind, that is the idea of this tier list. That's how we're ranking these guns. So we are going to drop it in C tier. When it comes to the normal sickle, we're going to drop the sickle into B tier. Usually I drop the sickle in A tier, but I feel like it doesn't have really high damage. And remember what I said, CC is where it's at. And right now it doesn't have that, and it doesn't really help. Now, if you're thinking, Pip, Torture and Crossbow also don't have that much CC, you're going to be right. But there's skill gaps to Torture, for example. And what I mean by that is if you use it correctly and you're spraying the ground, you're essentially using the dot damage to counter your enemies. And on top of that, it can go through medium armor, heavy armor. It doesn't care about any enemy type within the game. It will melt them regardless. So there's definitely a difference between the sickle and the Torture, but that difference comes with the skill gap. And a lot of the times I can tell when people complain about the Torture, I can tell right away that they've just not spent enough time with the weapon. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that a lot of the times people just need to commit to one thing and really put in the time, and then they'll realize, oh, okay, so this is how I use it. Now it makes sense, right? And I just think that a lot of people probably don't do that, or simply don't have time to do that, which once again is absolutely fine. Then we have the Scythe. This is also gonna go to C tier. Then we have the Knight, the SMG. You burn through ammo really quick. We're just gonna throw this into doo-doo tier. Honestly, like as I said, most of these guns can be doo-doo tier as well. We're gonna drop Scorcher into A tier. This is probably gonna move down on A tier here, because the reason being, once again, they get to you really, really fast, and everything that the Scorcher will do currently for the bugs, I feel like the Purifier is going to do better, and I'm going to explain all of that, right? So we're going to put Purifier ahead of Scorcher. So when it comes to single target damage of the Bile Titans, the Scorcher can do a better job because the fire rate is better. So that means that it will take out that tail faster, both when it comes to the Chargers and the Bile Titans. However, when it comes to clearing the bugs, that's when it's going to fall off compared to the Purifier. That's because of the enemy changes, which is really cool to see that the game started feeling different and the difficulty has gone up. However, Purifier still does a great job at clearing. If you're charging up those shots and you're landing those shots, as long as you keep the distance and, for example, combine it with tools like gas items, you will be able to get clears very efficiently and very easily, and you're not going to struggle with it as much. On top of that, if you're smart with this weapon, even if the enemies do get close to you, obviously you can melee, but even if you use the single hits, you can get out of it alive and not fully drain your HP. But that said, it kind of runs into the same thing of the bugs are so fast now. They get to you so fast. So it does drop it down a tier for me personally. However, we are going to move it up over the Dominator. Eruptor is going to go to B tier. It is still interesting in some builds. So for example, if you combine this with a Stalwart, essentially you're going to be using Stalwart as a primary weapon, and in that case you're going to be using this to close bug holes and take out targets from afar, which it can work. But that said, the problem it has is called Crossbow. Crossbow is just going to do everything better than the Eruptor will, so there's no real reason to use the Eruptor. But the reason we're going to put it into B tier and not into C tier is that we already have auto rifles in here, and these weapons bring absolutely no value to build crafting, and Eruptor can bring value to build crafting. It's just not as big of a value as the Crossbow, for example. Then we have the counter snipers. We're not going to waste a lot of time here. We're just going to drop this into doo-doo tier when it comes to the bugs. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love these weapons when it comes to the Illuminates, when it comes to the bots. I think they're very, and I mean very strong. When you're fighting against the bugs, there's no reason to run them ever, period. Unless you just enjoy them. Once again, if you enjoy a weapon, use it, guys. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to anybody. If it's fun for you, use it. These tier lists are to share my experience as a player who has almost 2,300 hours within the game, and I need to bring you guys the facts on which weapons are going to make it easier for you to clear the highest difficulty, and these weapons are definitely not those weapons. The plasma shotgun is going to go in A tier. The one reason we're going to put it over the Scorcher here is I think that it has better ammo economy. You know what I'm thinking also? We're going to move Scorcher to high B tier. The reason we're going to do that in this current meta is that there's so many bugs that I did feel like the ammo economy was lacking on this gun. And every time I use this, I felt like I needed the supply pack to use it, right? Even though it does a way better job than all of the ARs and whatnot, I still think that the ammo economy is an issue. And the reason I'm going to put it into B tier, obviously above the auto rifles, is that it does a great job against, Bile Titans and Chargers and whatnot. But the weaker ammo economy is going to drop it to B tier for me personally. I do think that these weapons have better ammo economy across the board. The Incendiary shotgun is going to be in the same boat. It has a problem of ammo economy. Both of these weapons, by the way, if you do equip a supply backpack, they go probably either to big PP or high A tier. Both of these weapons do. They really do. They're incredible with a supply backpack, okay? And that, once again, proves my point. Like, if we are using a supply backpack, weapons like these skyrocket up, and there's no reason to use any of these weapons anyway, even if you're running a supply backpack. Take a look. Let's quickly go over their shotguns. We're gonna drop this. We're gonna drop this over here. I think the ammo economy is better than the Incendiary shotgun at the moment, and it does a pretty decent job at clearing, to be honest. It's not bad at all. And you know what? Now that I'm looking at the list, like, I think we're gonna move some of these into doo-doo tier as well, to be honest. Like these weapons right here. Boom. Probably this slugger. Dude, it breaks my heart to put slugger here, but honestly, like, why are you ever going to be using it? The auto rifles, tenderizer, it still can be used, and the adjudicator. These auto rifles, we're also going to drop this on the higher a little bit right over here, I guess. Boom. Just like this, something like this. Yeah, we're gonna drop these into D tier. I don't think they even deserve to be in C tier. You have a little bit of CC with the Liberator, but yeah, we're still gonna keep it over there. Shotgun, even though I don't like the pummeller, this thing needs a buff, bro. This needs a buff. Okay, we gotta buff it up. We gotta buff it up. This was a fan favorite. People enjoyed using this gun, and even though I want to throw up at my screen as I say it, it was a fun gun. It really was. So let's do a good buff to the pummeller. You know what I mean? Because it needs it. It really needs it, bro. It really does. So I'm gonna throw it into somewhere here, like slot it in here. I don't know, like squeeze it in. I don't want to put it into doo-doo tier, you know what I mean? But technically you could. Okay, let's talk about the Halt shotgun. This right now, I feel, is a very good weapon, guys. Now, I don't think it's as good as the Blitzer or as the Cookout while we're at it, but I do think it's very good if used correctly. The only thing about this weapon is how you swap between this stun and the normal shots, and it is even more annoying on controller, to be honest. But there is a few things you can do to make it less annoying and to make it more fluid. But across the board, the fact that it has such good CC and that you could literally CC chargers as well makes it one of the better picks in this current meta. We are going to throw this into A tier. I actually think that it's going to go right over here. I feel like for build crafting, it has more value than the Dominator. We might even put it right over here behind Purifier. And I love to run this weapon when I'm creating a crowd control build, which is what I'm looking for at the moment anyway. So when you combine this with something like the Gas Rover, guess what? You are stun locking everything on the battlefield, and it just feels so good. Also, Defender was supposed to be in C tier. That's my bad. And now let's talk about the kill zone weapons. So it's gonna struggle with the same thing, guys. It's all about the speed and the change of enemy types. And, you know, whenever there's gonna be predator bugs on the maps, it's not gonna work well at all. It obviously comes down to fire rate, the ammo economy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this into doo-doo tier as well. Reprimand is going to be the next weapon that we are going to talk about real quick. Going to have the same issue, guys. You're going to be reloading 24/7. And on top of the fact that the ammo economy is an issue on this one, it also has incredible amounts of bloom. Approximately, I believe, 10 times more than some of the other weapons, which doesn't really make sense to me personally. Like, if this weapon was overpowered in some way and they were trying to nerf it with bloom, okay, maybe. But even then, I feel like having a mechanic like bloom in a game just makes it unfun to play. You're aiming right, you're doing everything right, but the shots are just not there. You know what I mean? So I hope they remove that and maybe we revisit it after that. This is gonna go to C tier as well. Okay, that's gonna be it for the updated tier list for the bugs. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let's have a discussion. Remember, we can always agree to disagree. This specific tier list is there for, once again, to complete the highest difficulty as easy as possible, as conveniently as possible. And after testing every single weapon against the bugs, this is my tier list right here. As always, thank you so much for all the love and support. More content is on the way for Helldivers 2. As always, stay positive, stay disciplined, and I'll see you all on the next one.